Hi all. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Somit, for waking up this early and hosting this session for us. I see a lot of folks who are either not a member of Misfits or are maybe first time attending this call. For those of who are new, I'll just quickly tell a bit about Misfits. That we are a conglomeration of investors like yourself, and we provide a very highly curated deal flow to all our investors. In the first quarter of 2023, we've evaluated about 186 deals, and we've invested in around six of them. More than 75 investors participated in those deals, and they committed around 200,000 USD in those deals. Our member base also in the first quarter of 2023 grew to about 350 plus members, with members from across 15 nations joining Misfits. So that's that about Misfits. Today we have Shreekant and Soumitra for this session. The topic is bundling versus unbundling, and I'll quickly introduce both Soumitra and Shreekant to you. Soumitra is one of the earliest members that we've had on Misfits, and it is, I think, the first or the second month that he became a part of Misfits. And he's a seasoned angel investor. He's done more than about 23, 24 odd investments so far, and he's been doing angel investments since about a decade. Along with being an angel investor, he's also been a founder himself once, and he's headed product for a lot of organizations like Wocomo, Quixie, and Shutterfly. Welcome, Soumitra. Thank you for hosting again. And on the other end, we have Shreekant, who's a co-founder and CEO of Sketchnote. Shreekant has been like a Forex founder before this, and his previous venture was acquired. And as you can see from his background, apart from him being an investor and a founder, he's also a guitarist, and he once used to be a biker. So now over to you guys. Just a quick, feel free to drop in your questions in the chat. Once Soumit and Shreekant have spoken about the topic, they'll be taking the questions from the chat.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Karan. And Karan and Vishal, I think one request, if you guys can sort of keep track of the questions from the community as we are discussing, and at any point in time, if you feel a question is relevant, I think we can just take it on at that time as well. Let's make this interactive and interesting for everyone. And thank you, everyone. Thanks for taking out time, and thanks, Shreekant, for joining us.
Thank you so much.
I think we are going to be discussing a very important facet of building SaaS companies today, which is bundling versus unbundling. I mean, anyone who's been in the ecosystem last 10 years, it's all been about vertical SaaS. But now, as the cycle is resetting, and as enterprises are increasingly being cost conscious, a lot of them are consolidating their tech stacks. There's recently a school of thought that's emerging that is actually the future of SaaS in bundling, which is sort of bringing together diverse use cases in one product, which is much more value effective for customers. Most of the founders in our networks, I think, are building vertical SaaS companies. So we decided to invite Shreekant, who's taking the contrarian bet of going all in on building a bundled SaaS product. I think, Karan, you did a great job of introducing Shreekant. I want to talk a little bit about Sketchnote as well, so that people are familiar with what the company is doing. So Sketchnote is an all-in app for productivity. I think Shreekant and I were chatting yesterday. So it's really bringing in a triad, a very important triad for companies, which is project management, learning management, and CRMs all in one app. Shreekant also runs Sketchnote Partners, which is a micro VC firm that invests in startups in India and Southeast Asia. They've already done 30 plus startups. And of course, Julio is one of the co-founders as well of the company. And I think, Shreekant, you're really well positioned to sort of really speak about this topic. So before we get into the meat of the topic, I really want to spend, Shreekant, some time on your life journey and what you have learned. I mean, you and I know each other for 10 years. I think I met you the first time when you were running Dibito, which was a healthcare hardware startup more than 10 years back. And I was in venture capital at that time. And this is your fifth startup. So if you have to look back at the Shreekant of 2013 versus today, what is that one thing that you strongly believed in 2013 that today, after having experienced life over four startups and now the fifth one, what's that one thing that you don't believe in anymore?
When it comes to like market, or when it comes
anything,
to
anything, life, market, startups, anything.
It's very funny that you ask, because I wanted to like first introduce myself as well. But before that, can I take this question before, I actually start introducing myself? Because that will actually give like context to this particular question. Right.
Yes.
So hi everyone. Hi, my name is Shreekant, and I'm also here with my amazing co-founder Julio, who's a prolific angel investor, has invested in more than 50 startups already, and is a LP in two funds, a fund in Spain, and also we have a fund in Singapore as well. But before that, I'll tell you about my journey. Basically, I've been an entrepreneur all my life. I started my entrepreneurial journey way back in 2004. I was the fifth employee of this startup from Silicon Valley called usendit.com. This was way before Dropbox or Rapid Shares of the world, or if you actually know about all those things as well. And I was literally working like 17 hours a day. That was the best thing that I actually did. And I quit Usendit when they raised 20 million in venture funding for the biggest mistake of my life, which is MBA in the UK. And that was to please my dad. But just a funny anecdote before that is that I was earning so much money in Usendit when I was 21 actually, that my father did not believe where this money is coming from, because I used to just sit in my bedroom like this and just lock myself and work on my computer for 17 hours. And my father did not believe where is this wire coming from, so much money coming from somewhere. He actually went to the manager of Canara Bank and said that I think my son is either in pornography or he's doing something illegal, and can you trace this wire where this money comes from, and that kind of stuff. And this is, believe me, because this is 2004, when the word startup did not even exist, not only just in India but worldwide, right? That kind of stuff. And I quit for doing a MBA in UK, and in the first year itself I realized this is not for me. I cannot ever imagine myself doing a job, and I have to return back to the startup world. I came back in 2007, completed my MBA, and started two other startups. They were angel invested by Valley folks. Everyone from Usendit, they invested, and I massively failed, like massively failed. And then I was like sitting in my bedroom, depressed, thinking, what do I do? I cannot go for a job. And I always loved comics, so I started a comics website. And I scaled that website to top 60,000 websites of the world in just 6 months time, just doing what I just loved. And I sold it to a Bollywood producer, made some money there. And now, Soumitra, basically what happened was that again, like I was thinking that what comes next. I don't know what comes next, right? What to do with this. But now what had happened is that iPhone was launched, and App Store was launched in 2009. And I thought that apps are going to take over the world, because there's one thing that I knew that if you want to really scale up fast, anything, you just ride the wave, just like ChatGPT thing, right? I'll come to the numbers bit and stuff like that. So what I did is that I moved to Bangalore. I hired one part-time girl who was working for Infosys, who was an app developer. And from that part-time developer to I scaled that company to 70 people in just 2 years time in Bangalore. But this time I had realized that and I was like hell-bent that I'm not going to raise any venture. I'm going to bootstrap, but I'm going to work on a very ambitious technology. So we were working on building a mobile ad server in 2009. This is before AWS of the world or Azure's of the world and that kind of stuff. I had hired PhDs from IISc. Biggest mistake again, and that kind of stuff. They were just like doing theory stuff, could not do anything in practicality. And but at the same time, we were doing services, right? So we were doing services for BlackBerry, Macmillan, and those kind of things. And basically, we were just riding the wave and basically doing like ebooks, because ebooks was the big thing and that kind of a trend and stuff like that. But then, after 2 years, I realized that, if I want to scale this up, I don't want to do that Infosys way, because everyone from Bangalore is just doing the same thing, right? Services. Nobody believed in product then, right? And obviously, rightfully so, because it's so hard to actually do a product. I got acquisition offer from Macmillan, from Repro India, which is like the biggest publishing house from Asia, and from Hinduja Global, And, I was too naive. We were doing around $300,000 ARR. And the best offer that I got was of $800,000, and I was too naive. I was thinking that, man, like Usendit was getting like, was getting like 100 million valuation. And I'm getting only like an offer of $800,000. This does not work. This does not compute, right? And that kind of stuff, right? And at that time, while this was actually happening and stuff, my father had an untoward health incident related to diabetes. So actually, I came to Mumbai to take care of his health. And, everything was all right and stuff. But, I thought that, hey, you know what? I can actually solve the problem of diabetes management. But there was one problem is that I could not code. So I started taking coding lessons from a 20-year-old back in 2011. And then in just like about 6 months' time, I was coding in Objective-C, C, and Java. And there is this one book, which is like really amazing book called Nature of Code by this guy called Daniel Schiffman, who's a professor at NYU. And he was like, teaching how to code using processing, which is a Java-based language. And I actually did that and stuff. And at that time, he was actually explaining AI as well, using Java, using processing, which is a open source language. Back then, when I was learning to code, I actually did like supervised learning and unsupervised learning using Connect in 2011. And I didn't know, like, AI is gonna be like this big and whatever. I was just enjoying and like figuring out things and stuff like that. And in parallel, I hired like a small team of 6 people, and we started building Dybito. And it took us like 5 years. We were too naive again, thinking that we are going to change the world because there's a hardware device involved. And Julio was our first investor. And Julio said that, what, just stop wasting time in India. Investors are not understanding this thing. Yeah, the market, although India is like the diabetic capital of the world, people, nobody except the glucometer device companies can actually make a business sense out of this market, right? And Julio said, just stop wasting time, move to Silicon Valley. I did. We got Intel as a first client. We got users in 42 countries. And basically what happened was that within just 8 months of time, we got acquired by this massive medtech giant called Livongo, and Livongo got acquired for $14 billion. And that just basically like, it was like, everything happened so fast in the valley because I was just thinking that why did I why was I there? Like, for 5 years, why was in India and like struggling, trying to convince everyone that this is what is actually happening and stuff like that. And within 8 months, people just were getting everything what we were doing because there was a problem that existed. There was this B2B solution and stuff like that, right? So I think, back then, I am, to answer your question, I really feel that it is the market, which is definitely a very big thing, right? And if you can ride the wave, that is amazing. However, I basically now I'm a firm believer that if you are, market is not just one thing, but actually the ICP is also another thing, which means that if you are coming up with a software or hardware or whatever, do not sell to poor people. I know this is a very controversial statement, so sell to people who have like deep pockets. And if your ICP is basically like market, like student, there's a student market is so big. Look what is happening to all these companies, right? And stuff like that. Look all the scandals. Look everyone. An academy now launched, went back to offline today, right? And I'm like, it's going the closed circle again and that kind of stuff. So, if, everyone said, and, I right now I'm seeing like both sides of the table, right? So I've seen like, how entrepreneur works, and I've seen the VCs as well and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong, Julio is like the best VC and stuff like that, and I don't enjoy investing, but I've seen that, if you actually chase what VCs chase the market for or something like that, you're gonna be landing in a very big hellhole. So, that's why, it's always like this, that, chasing these kind of, fads have like their own things, right? There might be a certain truth towards it, but, it is very, very difficult to actually predict the future, right? And that kind of stuff. So if you are at it, all you need to do is that basically see that how fast that market is actually growing. Like, for example, Web3. Last year, everyone was doing Web3. And I have, these are my personal views, right? And I've been always against Web3 because it just doesn't make sense for me and stuff like that. But even let's say Web3, right? Let's take the numbers now. It took like about more than about 5 years for Bitcoin users to get to like 50 million, right? And ChatGPT basically, it just took like about 1 month to reach 100 million figure. And that's just going to go like, up from it and that kind of stuff. But there are these ups and, but if you are building I was just chatting with our New York investor, amazing guy, who's the head of X 500 startups in India, and he was also saying that if you are riding the wave with Chat GPT, maybe you can go a certain level, but above that you cannot scale because your entire business model is going to be on Chat GPT. At the end of the day, you will start seeing all the apps which are doing just the exact same thing, or that kind of stuff, unless and until you don't have all that kind of stuff. And that's why when people actually ask me, or the investors ask me that, what about AI, and what are you going to do AI and stuff like that? But I firmly believe that you need to actually first build a product of your own, and you cannot actually be dependent on your core competency cannot be dependent upon a different product. Like, for example, look at what Twitter did, right? If you are aware of it, like the Twitter API basically has changed the rules, and every company which is like, actually every SaaS company which is focusing on Twitter API is getting a $42,000 bill every month. So all of these guys are gone, like, so unless and until you have not raised a bigger amount of money or whatever, you're just completely gone. When I was working at Diabito, there was this other startup which got a bill of $500,000 from AWS. How are you going to pay that kind of money, right? They had to actually shut shop. They did all that kind of stuff, etc. and stuff. So I feel that, there has to be a base that you have to build by building your own product. And in today's world, like, for example, as I said that, in 2007, I scaled that comics website to top 60,000 Alexa websites of the world in 6 months' time. In today's world, if you are a small startup, which is like 6 people like me, it is virtually impossible to do that. It is not possible at all, right? So obviously the things have changed. Everything has become so complicated that, in fact, like as Julio rightfully says, that probably now going forward, starting a startup is not going to be that lucrative, because it is gone are the days that you can actually scale. Even if you are a small company or something like that, you could scale to a very, very high MRR or profitability maybe as well in very less amount of time. But now, and that's why if you see from the trends as well, like the VCs are also investing in like non-traditional businesses as well, as compared to only like tech kind of a business and those kind of things as well.
Amazing.
So
Amazing.
those are my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, this is great. It's a lot to unpack, and a lot of segues. But yeah, I think as you rightly said, I think Mark Andreessen says this famously, right? Between market and team, the market always wins. So I think that's a great learning for the last 10 years. I think quickly moving on to the meat of the topic itself. Yeah, I would love to understand how did you arrive at the thesis for Sketchnote, especially from a bundle SaaS product perspective. Of course, I think going to the landing page and the product is still very early, but seems to be bringing in very, very different kind of use cases together. And it seems to be quite different even from the earlier companies you've done and the way you approached building earlier products in your past lives. So it would be great to understand what's your thesis, what's your worldview behind Sketchnote.
Agreed. All right. Okay. Again, so, I love to tell stories because, my life is driven by stories. And so if you are a good storyteller, I think, a great storyteller can actually win any kind of battle, right? So this is a true story. So what happened is that, after the Diabito acquisition, I had the golden handcuff. And, and during that golden handcuff, what was happening is a lot of accelerators and VC funds would get in touch with me saying that, hey, why don't you mentor our startups, right? And I would tell them that, look, I'm not a mentor material, but if you want me to tell your startups how to fail faster or something like that, that would be really cool. I can actually help that. So based on that, I got associated with accelerator based in India, which is actually a partnership between Indian government and Canadian government. And they were investing in women entrepreneurs working very early stage and those kind of things, right? And while I was working with them, I was working pro bono with them for like 3 years, right? While I was working for Livongo as well. And I realized that, mentorship is a very unscalable process. And you need to spend a lot of time with the entrepreneurs to get to a certain level and stuff like that. But, you can actually kind of like a lot of things, because most of the time people will be asking the same thing, that how do I get my first 50 customers? Or what is MRR? What is ARR? What is SAFE? What is LOI? And that kind of stuff, right? So I always thought that maybe if I can productize this kind of a knowledge base kind of a thing, that I can just point out that, hey, you know what, you can check this particular link, but if you want any real world kind of thing experience that you want me to share, you can make use of my time better, right? So what happened that, Julio was in Japan that time, and I was traveling to Japan, and I met him, and I showed it to him that, look, Julio, this is what I'm doing. I'm like trying to, just build this kind of a thing, just as like, because a lot of people actually help me. So I just want to help entrepreneurs all around the world with this and stuff. And Julio was like, this is insane. This is amazing. I think, this, we can actually make this as a SaaS idea. And I'm like, wow, really? Are you sure? And he said like, yeah, I'm going to quit my job. And he did. And I'm like, wow, okay. And then I got like really serious, thinking that, oh my God, he quit his job. I think we need to do this. And then Julio came up with a brilliant idea. He said that, hey, you know what? What we can do is that we should start a VC ourselves. And that way, basically, that way we can actually like, learn what are the problems of these startups that they're facing. And we can actually use this as a hack to basically, run our ideas with these guys as well, right? And I'm like, wow, this is amazing idea, because, that's just brilliant. This is just great. But, I'm more of a, although I've invested in startups and that kind of stuff, I love, dipping my hands as being an operator and stuff. So, Julio got a team of like, angel investors, CEOs, CTOs from India, US, and India, and Spain. And we worked with a law firm in India and a law firm in the US. And he came up with a library of more than 250,000 words worth of content, which is like across culture, sales, marketing, and that kind of stuff. And then, while he was investing, he was saying that, hey, you need help here for your legal, you go here. You need help with your sales and marketing stuff, you go here, and that kind of stuff. So what we saw is that while they were happening, people were going in, but they were just going in and then learning something, and then they were not coming back for 60 days or something like that, and suddenly something, they're coming back on 70th day. And then while we were working with these guys, we realized that if you are an entrepreneur, or if you are a SME or SMB or even a mid-market company, you need to move a needle, right? So you need product management, you need project management kind of a tools. And we started working on that, and our retention went to like 62% over a 58-day cohort. And that's when we realized that, oh my God, this is insane. And then we started like surveying people that how much money are you actually spending if you're on your sales team, on your tech team, on different SaaS tools. And then it just dawned out that if you are on an average, if you're a 5-person company, you spend on an average between $1,000 to $3,000 on different SaaS tools. Imagine if this is like a 5-person company that you are spending. Imagine if you are a 50 people Series A or beyond company, how much money that you'd be spending. And when we interviewed like 200 SaaS entrepreneurs across 8 countries, and we said that, if we give you a bundled solution, and which will give you more than 79% savings across all of these kind of things, would you be interested, right? And of course, we were, obviously people, when you are actually doing the mom test, everyone says yes, but the real mom test is when you are actually watching people, when they think that they are not being watched upon, right? And that's when our retention numbers were like going up, people were signing up. And that's when we really think that, okay, this is really a problem solution fit. But this was happening like last year. We started making these horizontal tools, but then we realized that, okay, you know what, if we target like these early stage entrepreneurs or something like that, we really have to get to that insane number, right, to reach to like $1 million. So the 2 months ago, like a month ago, me and Julio, we traveled in the US, and we started speaking with like mid-market companies, Series A and beyond, to like enterprises of like JP Morgan Chase, or 50,000 people companies. And when we started showing them, they completely relate exactly the Dialvito experience. That they already know the problem. They already are using like these dry softwares like Salesforce, Zoho, and that kind of stuff. Someone actually called us that, oh wow, this looks like a premium Zoho. How much does it cost? And when I would tell them the pricing, they would be like, please tell us when you launch, that kind of stuff. So, I feel that, we are getting into problem solution fit, but to the real test will actually start when we actually release the triage of features, which is project management, learning management system for mandatory compliances for Series A and beyond companies, and CRM.
So that's great. And I think it's great that you mentioned Zoho. I think just to play kind of a little bit of devil's advocate, because I know you're still very early in the product building phase. I think just going through the landing page, it seems that the product is very, very full featured, right? I mean, you have a lot of functionalities from these 3 kind of very disparate kind of use cases or buckets of use cases in an enterprise. And if you look at companies that have done bundled solutions previously, you look at a Zoho, look at a Freshworks, and even classic product management, the philosophy is that you start off with a wedge use case, should be very sharp. And then all the companies, you sort of end up layering different kinds of use cases much down the road, right? Like when you have established like a baseline, like a starting point, a very strong starting point. This seems to be a very reverse approach. And I know you're still very early when this is just my understanding from going through, what's on the landing page right now. But talk us a little bit through how you're approaching building the product out right now as you are talking to these customers and design partners at this stage.
Right. So everything is basically agile, right? Everything is we follow lean methodology, right? So basically we have like a public roadmap as well, and people would actually come up and say, request a lot of things, right? But at the same time, we actually just we look at things that is that, how, is this a money feature, right? That's what we call it in the layman term inside the company, which means that, will people be ready to pay for this particular thing and or not, right? And then we do a lot of competitor analysis as well. And it's the funny thing is that, early on when we were, to be honest, we also don't have all the answers. We were also figuring out the things, right? The funny thing is that what was happening is that a lot of investors and small micro VCs were using our platform. They are still using our platform as well. And then we realized that, why are you using a platform? It is not for you, right? It's for, our ICPs, like companies and stuff like that. And then we realized we actually started interviewing people and stuff. I actually flew to Indonesia to one of the VC conferences, pretending to be, that kind of stuff, active VC. But my main thing was just asking people that, why are you using this? And then we realized that, Affinity, which is like a VC software, charges like $250 per user per month. Close, which is another thing. So CRM is, then we realized the CRM space is like such an important space, but it's like it costs so much money. And, everyone is trying to hack their way into it and stuff. Even though, when we say that, we are defining our ICP as early stage, which we are not anymore. We are looking at mid-market and stuff. But, the tools that we were building were anybody can actually use. But if you want to move ahead in that needle, we wanted to look at the ICP as well, right? And even now, yesterday as well, there's this one VC firm which came and told us that, hey, can you please do a CRM? Can you do this and that kind of stuff? And then we realized that if VCs are only looking at the deal management, the companies have this big issue. Their sales team have this entire big issue, right? VCs have a team of 3 or 5 people and stuff like that, right? So we will not be able to scale that much. But the problem is real. If they are facing this problem, the companies are facing that problem as well. When I went on a demo call, I thought that this was with a 50 people CTO. Turns out that it was a 500-person CTO, right? And believe it or not, that company is profitable, doing 60 million ARR, and they still do not have a full-fledged project management and a CRM. So every team is using all the things in silos. And obviously, even at this point as well, I was really surprised they are looking to save money. So I feel that when everyone talks about it, that, if you are solving a problem, price is not the thing. Probably I take it with a pinch of salt, because when there is a entire feature parity, then it all comes down to how much is it cheaper and that kind of stuff. But again, the same thing that, we are extrapolating the problems that, these small companies have, the VCs have, and then we are extrapolating and looking at the ICP, which is mid-market, and that's how, we are going at it. And that's how it actually is making a huge sense, because we are very close to close a contract with UC Chicago. And UC Chicago, basically, they are a non-profit, but still they use Jira, and still even with 50% discount, the numbers are just insane, and they are looking to cut down on that thing. For them, basically, I'm looking at first entering UC Chicago with the LMS, right? And then with the, their team extensively uses Jira. And I understand that for this and 9,000-person thing, they are not going to shift from Jira straight away for a new tool which has come into the market and that kind of stuff, right? So that's what it is really working out, that, we enter the foothold with one of our solutions, and we say that, no problem, why don't you just migrate some part of your data, see how it is working, and before that you come there and that kind of stuff. This is something which is really working out very well for now.
Got it. Yeah, it's very interesting, and I think as you sort of go through this journey, it is a different approach to how sort of other companies approached it. But that's I think that's the whole point of building a new product that doesn't exist in the market. So it'll be very interesting to see what the learnings are for the team. Um, Another thing I wanted to talk about was the whole consumerization of user experience, right? I mean, if you saw in the last 10 years, most of the vertical SaaS solutions were basically created where entrepreneurs went in, unbundled the Salesforce stack, like took out the use cases and then made them very lightweight, very easy to use. Look at the likes of Calendly, and it has taken some time, but these products have really taken off. When you look at the Notions of the world as well, Monday.com, right? Like the experiences were very different compared to the earlier generation of enterprise software, which was in the whole kind of Salesforce, Microsoft, kind of clunky, very heavy enterprise grade kind of software. Um, but the data is also interesting, right? You look at a Slack, it's actually been out distributed by teams, even though everyone like howls about how bad Teams is. You look at a Confluence or a Jira with all the experience. I've been a PM for many years. We might complain all that we want. It's a massive user base and distribution, and it's still very very high retention product. So how do you see going forward in terms of this whole consumerization? Like, is that table stakes? Can this be a sustainable differentiator now, or are we looking at a different kind of paradigm going forward, specifically for a product like yours, which is bringing in very, very different use cases in sort of one experience, right? And it's going to be quite different from a very sharply defined use case driven product. So would love to
Exactly.
hear any thoughts that you guys have around that.
I would love to tell a story which I tell everyone as well. So basically, believe it or not, like Julio was my board member and my mentor at Divido. So what would happen is that I would like promise myself that when I would leave my place from Mountain View and I would go to the city in San Francisco, I would take the Caltrain. I would like see myself in the mirror and say that I would not come back before I meet three people and tell them about Divido, right? Or like, it can be VC, it can be client and that kind of stuff. And while coming back, so basically what would happen is that I was, basically talking to like wrong ICP, right? And I would be very depressed and Julio would call me and he would tell me that probably you should just like think of it from an outer perspective, like, think out of the box and maybe like take a complete different strategy. And that's exactly what happened is that when we pivoted from B2C to B2B, we straight away 100x the sales in just like one deal. And that's when we realized that we are in a market where it is not B2C. B2C is for people who are like, billion-dollar enterprises. But if you're a startup, you have to look at B2B and that kind of stuff. That was Divido. Now I'll tell you in Sketchnote what was actually happening, right? So basically, we were looking at our ICP that, usually ICP is like a startup or a tech company or those kind of things. And when we would talk to them and they would be like, oh, you know what, but we use Notion, it's expensive, but I'm in love with Notion. If I'm talking to like a CTO, they would say that, you know what, I use Vim and Roam Research, that kind of stuff. And I would be like telling them that, but you know what, it's very powerful, but is this power, whatever, is being used by the entire company? And they would be like, no, of course not, right? The same thing, what happened is that, when I showed this, what I'm building to my lawyer, in India, who uses Microsoft Teams and who has got like a 50 people staff and stuff, his mind was blown. And he was like, I want this. I exactly want this because I'm looking for something like that. So the point being, and the same thing, when I'm talking to accountants or those kind of things, they just get blown away. They're like, what is this? This is amazing. I'm going to save so much money and stuff. The point being is that, our ICP basically should not be like these CTO guys who come up with these pre-notion things thinking that Slack is the best, right? And again, as you were talking about, the same thing is that, Slack has 20 million users. Microsoft Teams, bad UX, bad UI. Let's talk about numbers, 200 million distribution numbers straight away. When Microsoft Team came like 7 years after Slack, right? So the same thing is basically what is happening is that, we realize that, we should be talking to, the C-suite who's like HRs or, and like companies where we tell them that, look, this is what we are building and this is a clear-cut differentiation between Notions of the world, Asanas of the world, ClickUps of the world, Monday.coms of the world, and us, and whatever the Zenefits or the any kind of like Workday or something like that. We are giving you like thousands of dollars of saving as compared to like whatever. These are the people who make the decision. These are with just like one particular meeting, and stuff. We straight away go to like $10,000 MRR kind of stuff, right? So that's basically that's the thing. So when we are doing sales, because that's where when we finish our first version in July, we already started the sales conversation, and this is what we have learned, right? You look at the market is so huge. I'm not even going to tell you the numbers, right? But just to give you an idea, Monday is going to do 750 million ARR this year. Asana is going to do 450 million ARR this year. ClickUp is going to do 150 million ARR this year. So this is the kind of market that you're actually looking at, right? And so which means, and these kind of like scale numbers you're not going to get when you're chasing like other tech startup who are going to who are going to compare you with something else, and then in the end, they're going to die anyways, because 90% of the startups die anyways, right? That kind of stuff. So yeah.
Awesome. No, this makes complete sense. I think everyone is sort of learning the hard lessons, especially in the last year or so, that distribution trumps product very often. So, and I think it's a great reminder for all of us in the ecosystem. We have a ton of questions from the community on Sketchnote in particular, but there is one point that I have to ask about, which is AI and ChatGPT. Shreekant, are you there? I think your video is frozen.
Yeah, I can take the question while he's
Okay, perfect,
like,
perfect, perfect. I can see a very nice smile of
yeah.
Shreekant. So, so Julio, I think one question was, I think with AI and ChatGPT now, I mean, I was very fascinated by Dharmesh Rao, the founder of HubSpot, hacking ChatSpot over a weekend. And looks like the companies that Sketchnote is trying to go up against, the whole CRM space, the project management space, those companies themselves are getting disrupted, right? And with AI capabilities, I think a lot of the opportunities might get negated and some might get turbocharged. So how is Sketchnote? I know it's really early days. It's really hard to project what's going to really happen. But how is the Sketchnote team looking at AI and the opportunity?
Right. Shrikant has joined. I'll just give you a very brief answer and he can complement. Shrik, this is about AI and Sketchnote.
Right.
So actually, funnily, when we first started with Sketchnote, we immediately decided to integrate AI. And then we kind of stopped because we thought maybe this is a vanity kind of feature to add on top. So we stopped with the plan to further develop AI. But in the last few months, as we see that ChatGPT has kind of reached product market fit and it's become, let's say, a global product, we've decided to go back with our plans of integrated with OpenAI, and we've actually already done that. So that's the good news. We've integrated in our documents and in our learning management system, and that's the first step. And the second step is to basically build our CRM as a smart CRM. The good news is that we haven't yet fully developed our CRM, so we have a chance to build it from scratch as a smart CRM. That's the short answer. Shreek, I don't know if you want to add anything about.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So
AI.
we are basically looking at much more deeper kind of AI integration, which means that we're looking to basically do like project management and Scrum based thing, wherein like it will actually, this is the main problem for all the tech teams, right? They run the sprints for 2 weeks and then only to realize that it's not been completed and that kind of stuff, right? So the CFD is completely everywhere, the team velocity is everywhere and that kind of stuff, and it takes a lot of cycles to actually just like smoothen out that particular curve to come to a conclusion where that okay, probably we know what the team is doing and stuff like that. And then the middle of that, one person leaves, and then again you're like you're back to square one. So we are basically trying to like learn that integrate AI in such a way that that it will actually predict that whether this thing whether you have to add like more manual power or those kind of things and stuff. That's going to be very very powerful for the tech teams for the project management bit.
That's great. Yeah, I think as a product leader, my request will be that please use whatever AI or ChatGPT capabilities to make sure that I can easily move my Jira tickets around. So whatever is the Jira ticket equivalent in Sketchnote, that's been the bane of my life for for many years. So
Absolutely.
this is great. I think we can now jump into questions. And Shreekant, I want to do this in a rapid fire way because I'm also conscious of time. We have 10 minutes. So there are a bunch of questions that we have already collected from the Misfits community, and then Karan Vishal, as questions come in through the chat, we can take them as well. And Shrikant, you can keep the responses brief. These are very specific questions, essentially around the company, specifically around the company. So is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, perfect. So I've just divided the questions into, like 3 or 4 key buckets. So we can start with the customer persona. So who's the primary buyer and user persona for Sketchnote right now?
So right now it is like mid-market and basically Series A and beyond companies.
Perfect. And this is an interesting one. I mean, it's, I think, related to the first question, which is how's the need for small enterprises different from the large ones? When you're actually pitching Sketchnote to some of these potential customers, and where do you think is Sketchnote's real TAM? Like, if you have to go even drill down even deeper, right, to between these segments.
Right. So basically, for example, like the really small enterprises, they ask for like varied features across the entire life cycle, which means that, let's say that, like, right from creating a project to basically like have like a feature which is invoicing and generating contracts and proposals and those kind of things, like the entire revenue life cycle, and then, that kind of stuff. These are the things which the small companies ask. But if you actually go to like, mid-market and that kind of stuff, their main focus is like, on mandatory things which are absolutely essential, wherein like you actually help them save time or save money or both, right? So which means that LMS, we have actually realized that, it's such a boring product, but at the same time, when LMS capability should not be just like, making you enabling you to add this thing. But the thing is that the HRs do not have an idea. For example, when you raise a Series A, the investor puts a mandate that you have to undergo all of these compliances, or when we are actually doing it and stuff like that. But the ops guys and stuff like that, they do not know where to like source all of these kind of lessons and those kind of the courses and give it to them. It's a time consuming kind of a matter, right? So basically we are helping them with like inbuilt, pre-built kind of these courses which you can just straight away distribute to your employees and start collecting responses, download it and submit it to the governments.
Awesome. And where do you think is your real TAM between these two
And beyond.
personas? I said, okay, got it. Great. Moving on to product, I think I have a couple of product-related questions. So what is stopping firms from leveraging Slack, Teams, SharePoint, Notion, essentially the existing kind of enterprise stack to compile these features, right? Like, just they don't need Sketchnote, like they can use the existing solutions that are already available. So what is
This is
how
actually
this
happening right now, right? Which is actually happening, and that's why we are coming and like trying to disrupt this entire market. That's what actually happening. But at the same time, this is the main problem. That what actually happens is that usually these Series A or beyond have like an intern who stitch the data, or like usually these no code kind of a solutions, and like use Zapier or something like that, send data from here and there. That intern leaves, they don't know what to do. They don't have a central repository. The tech team is working in silo, the marketing team is working in silo, the reports are not being generated, the CFO asks, the CEO asks, it's like all over the place and that kind of stuff, right? But just now enter Sketchnote, it's just like a unified dashboard for your entire company, and you can actually use this and that kind of stuff, or you can just use one or two features and work with that as well, right? So but at the same time, that's why the main ethos why teams actually worked was actually the same thing, that they gave all of these things for just $3, right? And so everyone was like, okay, you know what, you use it or not, we are gonna basically do it. And we are not gonna use Zoom, we are not gonna use Slack, we are not going to use any other tool, because everything has been like built into Teams.
Got it. So it's basically consolidation and value, right?
Yeah.
So both. Okay. And this one is interesting around product, which is what is the switching cost for such a product? So for example, you go to a new customer, their data is already on existing systems of record. How do they bring it or port it into Sketchnotes? Like, what about compatibility issues as you're going into like existing companies?
Exactly. So again, like this is we are taking this as like the things which don't scale. So what we are telling them that we will sign an NDA with you, and we will import your data. So we will assign people from our teams, and basically we will import the data automatically to for you. Because the thing is that some people want like Jira import, some people want like a Notion import and stuff like that. But building all of these things is gonna take like some time for a small lean team, right? So what we are saying is that we are gonna sign an NDA. We will not share the data with anyone or whatever, and let us actually just build in into it. So far it's working, right? So people are like, okay, yeah, that's fine, we can actually consider that. We don't want to like import all the stuff, but we want to port only the things, test it out first, and then we can go.
Got it. Perfect. Next bucket is go to market. So is there any particular geography go to market plan that Sketchnote has? Like, are there specific regions globally that you're looking at? How are you thinking about that?
Right from the very beginning, me and Julio, we have agreed upon looking at Southeast Asia and US. um you know to a point where there has been like a debate between our existing investors as well, some saying that okay, you should be looking at Southeast Asia and India, and the rest of them are like, you should be like a US centric thing right from day one. Where to a point where people are saying that you should like move to the US or like keep traveling and do that and stuff. We are like 70% sure that the scale will actually come from US. But we are still 30% there. We are still thinking that there is a need, and definitely Indonesia and Southeast Asia are very growing markets. We have seen from our startups which are growing as well. We don't want to completely give that up, but yes, going forward, the majority shift will be to the US.
Got it. And then there were a lot of questions around traction, because I think the traction numbers were not very clear from the pitch and the description that came in. So just talk to us about what is the number of customers? Is the company already generating revenue? If yes, then what is the MRR of the company right now?
Right. So we are not focusing on the traction bit right now, because right now we are just like building the solution. And by around July, we will actually start like putting it out and those kind of things. So having said that, we have opened it up because we have opened to the beta users. So the beta users are north of about 4,500 now, right now, right? But again, like we are going to to be honest, we are going to segregate those the only the ideal ICP. So out of which, like out of those 4,500, 40%, 30 to 40% are actually students, which we are not focusing on. So we will be like just discounting that number basically. And going forward, most of the things will be like only coming. We will be only focusing on the MRR from August onwards, right? So we'll be publishing in July, and from August onwards we'll be focusing on the numbers. And basically we are looking at a steady growth, and our main goal is to basically get to 100 paid users, and then afterwards the second goal is like 1,000 paid users.
Got it. And then I don't think you don't have paid customers right now, but what are the kind of commercial arrangements you're thinking about? So I think just to sort of rephrase
We
the
do have
question, is it more
just Sumitra, we do
Yeah.
have about 7 paid accounts already. It's
7
just
paid
that,
accounts? Okay,
it's just that we're not focusing on like generating growth out of the traction, but we do
Got
have paid accounts. Yeah.
got it. Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for the clarification. So what are the kind of commercial arrangements you have with these customers? Is there a self-serve product? Are these like long-term contracts? Is it on a monthly subscription model? So I think just walk us through kind of the business model and the commercial sort of side of the business.
Okay, so basically we have like MRR and basically yearly accounts as well. So we've got like these small, but they are typically small teams of between 5 people and 30 people. So we have this 130 people team from Indonesia, so which is one account, right? So they are paying for 30 accounts, and they are paid like $600 straight away, a completely yearly kind of a thing, right? And so on and so forth. So our ARR right now is like about 1,200. Because we count accounts as like one startup or a company. So, and in that company they are like between 5 people and 30 people.
Got it. Perfect. And then last bucket is, I think some questions were around the financial planning of the company. So I think one question was, with such low prices, what's the expected timeline to reach profitability? And will there be an eventual hike in prices?
100%. This is just obviously like, the low hike in price is, as you know that, you pivot a lot with the pricing as you go ahead. So obviously we cannot be like, we cannot be giving at such low prices of $3 per user per month, right? If you're looking at, all of these things, so like, from like CRMs costing between like $60 to $300, and LMS is costing like $25,000 per year on those kind of things. So we are looking at somewhere when we actually hike the price, it will be like, around $15 to $30 per user.
Got it. And then the final question that I have from the community was, how will the company manage burn as more spend is needed on sales and marketing? And I think just sort of rephrasing the question as well, how are you thinking about capital raising, and sort of really capitalizing the company over the next 2 to 3 years? Bye, Julio.
Right. So, so first things first is that, obviously we are, this is our first round raise, right? So this is a pre-seed round. So we've got like commitment of 700,000, and we are looking to like go to about like 1 million. We can extend up to like 1.2 or something like that, right? First of all, our burn is like minimal. So at any given point of time, basically currently our burn is like $16,000 like per month, right? And at any given point till we actually reach like 1,000 paid users or to the next stage when we are actually raising the seed round, we will never be going beyond $25,000. That's going to be a burn, and that's what we have kept it, and that's why we are like so lean, and I really believe in that particular thing. So when we are the next round of fundraise, which we have already started doing, by the way, with next level things, next level VCs, is going to be between like $2 to $3 million. That's what we'll be looking at, and that we are looking at like somewhere around mid to like late next year.
Got it. Perfect. Great. I mean, these are the questions I had. Karan, Vishal, if
There's
there are any
one
questions
question from the chat. Sid wants to know that what is the approach of gaining trust of potential buyers? As for them, brand recognition is paramount, and the decision maker doesn't want to risk buying something which is not established in the market.
This is a tough one because obviously this is every startup has to go through this entire thing, right? And unfortunately, the trust comes up while you are speaking at such events and you are doing a lot of these webinars where you're talking at, let's say, for example, let me tell you one thing, that Livongo, when they acquired, after the acquisition, the VP of Corp Dev, he told me that they have been shadowing me for the past 4 years. So they have always attended all the conferences where I was speaking at and that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, when you're doing all these brand building things and stuff like that, it takes time. It cannot be, like an overnight process and that kind of stuff, right? So, PR and talking, basically, mostly it's like talking. And I've seen that, all these, the way I do it is that I do a lot, give it with a lot of personal touch, which means that, attending like mixers, wherein people actually come and talk to me, being more approachable and those kind of things. So I also organize these funding mixers in Mumbai, these startup mixers where people come and pitch and stuff like that, where we talk about Sketchnote and how we can help you and those kind of things and stuff. That way, it just builds that kind of time. Unfortunately, it takes a lot of time, and that is something that's just the beast about the business when you're doing it, right? So you have to just keep on doing it.
Thanks, guys. Do we have any other questions in chat? I just see one. If you guys have any questions, you can simply unmute your mic and also ask. Yeah, looks like we're through with questions. There was one question. I was interacting with the community members of ours, and he asked me if Sketchnote plans to build a content management tool within the like existing plethora of tools and features that you have. So they push their content on their website through a certain tool, which he was just concerned. Would you be planning on doing something like that?
So we already have it. So we have a documents feature, so people can actually use documents and then just point that subdomain to their particular thing, and they can use that as a CMS.
Okay. All right, looks like we have no other questions and we're also shooting over time. Thank you, Soumitra. Thank you, Shreekant, for doing this. Please thank Julio also for being there. He's left the chat.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much, sir. It was really a pleasure, Soumitra. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks, Vishal.
thank you.
Thanks, Bharat. Thank you, Shrikant.